We know that honesty is the best policy. But when it comes to ourselves, this is when life can truly take off. On this episode, we speak about how being honest with ourselves has made our current situations much, much easier to navigate through. Introducing on my final episode for Season 1, 2023, is Courtney Spiteri. Courtney is a boy mama of her two beautiful children, living her new and most authentic life on the Sunshine Coast. She practices as a clinical neuropsychologist, working mainly with young people across all stages of childhood. Courtney is on a deep journey of self-discovery, learning again to trust herself and follow her dreams in order to achieve her life's highest purpose. This has recently led to the birth of her very own new practice, Flower Neuropsychology, launching in 2024, which embodies the belief that all children and people born into life as unique wildflowers, individual beings that belong here on this earth to express their truest and most authentic selves. As she continues to grow, she hopes to inspire those around her to blossom. Well, that's enough for me, guys. Let's jump straight in. Welcome to the Honesty Policy Hour. I'm your host, Stephanie Marie, and it's time to put everything on the table on this beautiful journey of healing all areas of our lives, one deep conversation at a time. Hi, Courtney.
Hey, Steph. How are you?
I'm good, babe.
Oh, I feel a sense of calm. Like I'm back. I'm back in the space.
She's
virtually,
back.
but I'm back.
You were here. You were here last time in the flesh,
which is so
and now
amazing.
You're in dream world.
Yeah, up on the sunny coast. But it's so nice to see your face and be back in this beautiful space.
Oh, and you, honey, and you. Thank you so much for joining me for the surprise last episode. I feel like it's just funny how it kind of worked. Like I had this plan and then it just didn't work. And I was like, okay, that's all right. I'm just riding with it. And then I remembered us saying potentially we should do another one of just nothing, like just talking, just seeing where it goes.
Voice memos. Just download all the voice memos.
Compiled voice notes. And we'll just see where it goes, because I just feel that, I think we vibe really well, we speak really well, we hold each other's space really well, and who knows what comes up.
Oh, I know. I feel like, as I said before, I'm like a little bit nervous, but I think it's just that sitting with the vulnerability of like, there's no script, there's nothing to follow. Let's just see what comes up. It'll be right, whatever it is. Yeah.
But last time it was a little bit more. A little bit more. What's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? Serious.
Intentional. Yeah. Definitely serious. I feel like that was such a turning point. That episode.
Really?
Yeah. For me anyway. Yeah. Hugely.
Explain.
Like I feel like there was me before that episode, and then there was me after that episode. It was huge. I think I've said to you before, I'm so grateful that you created this platform and that you have created such a beautiful, authentic space that people can just like show up in. It's so amazing, and that's what it was for me last time. So obviously we spoke about childhood vaccines and a big vaccine conversation, I think, in that context as well. And I found that even though I was speaking my truth in that podcast, it took me a lot to actually share that podcast. Oh my gosh. Like on my platforms, because I was like so scared. And then I remember, and it was just niggling at me, like I've had this beautiful experience with Steph. I've shared my story. It's so vulnerable. It's so real. And then I just hid it for like 6 weeks.
It was longer than that.
Oh my God, it was so longer than that, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was
And
way longer because I remember getting like,
oh my God, it was way longer.
it was way. Well, I think it was months. It was
Mm.
months. I
Mm.
on my because you like on the platform that you post the podcast, you get like weekly notifications of like people downloading, and I think I had like 100 downloads, which is like usually what the episodes are with my viewers and the people who are drawn to me. And then all of a sudden it was like 250 up overnight. I'm like, what the fuck? And then I went back
Oh
to
my
your
God.
post. I'm like, she shared it. And it was all your tribe. I was like, oh my God.
Crazy. I know. It was, as I was saying, it was like I was just battling with, and look, to an extent, I think I still am, because we're always kind of leveling up, aren't we? And evolving and learning and doing the next thing. But it was like, when am I just going to get real with who I actually am? And if I'm honest, there was probably a lot, maybe not shame, no, not embarrassment. It was more, what are people going to think of me if they know I don't vaccinate my kids? I nearly had my best friend will laugh at this, Maddie. I had a dinner with her the night after the podcast, and I was nearly having a panic attack, having to tell her I've done this podcast with Steph and I don't vaccinate the boys. And she looks at me and she's like, what? She's like, babe, they're your kids. And I was like, yeah, they are my kids. And she's like, if you'd asked me, I probably would have said, no, you don't do that anyway, because I know you so well. It was so amazing. And then finally having this 6 weeks, and it coincided with doing a mentorship at that time, that 6 weeks, and ended up being a couple of months, where I just had to learn to integrate all the parts of myself to be the most authentic expression of myself, essentially, to live the life that I can live. And I remember I was driving home from a lunch down in the Gold Coast, so I had a bit of time. It was about 2 hours each way, and I was pumping my motivational songs so much. And then I came home. Oh, it was crazy. I came home to Matt and I'm like, I'm sharing the podcast. And he's like, right now. I'm like, right now. This is it. This is me. I'm sharing the podcast. And yeah, it was incredible.
Isn't it funny how much we put on a pedestal of what people think about us? Like, we think that the people-pleasing side of us is just like, no, they're going to think that we're the shittest person in the world. Therefore, we can't be who we want to be. But when we are, and then when we actually hear the feedback, it's so fucking liberating. It's like, hang on a second. So you didn't believe, you're not thinking what I'm actually thinking in my head. Like, this assumption thing stops you from being who you really are as a person. It stops you from evolving. It stops you from being authentic. It stops you from connecting with people on your authentic level. Because when you're connecting in a level where you're not authentic, it feels so, it just feels ugly. It really does. And you know that you're almost like pretending, and it's not that really beautiful flow that you can get when you're truly who you really meant to be. And I love the fact that you finally were able to cut that cord and be like, this is me. But I love how you still kind of needed permission a little bit from your bestie, because sometimes it's just a little, it's not permission, but it's kind of like, once I got to her, it's all good. Everybody else, it's all right. It was almost like that was a really important relationship to you. You didn't want them to think poorly of you. Therefore, once that was cool, the rest I can deal with.
Yeah, for sure. And there was a bit of a time lapse. So there was, as we say, like 2 months, I think, from telling her, because that was the day after the podcast, and then actually sharing it. And 100%, it was like, what's everyone going to think of me? What, like, in my workspace? Oh my God, it's so ridiculous where your brain goes sometimes. But like,
I know.
will I lose my job? Will I do this? Well, who's going to see it? And then you realize that I realized that everything that I was almost trying to avoid in hiding, all these parts of me that I was either ashamed of or scared about, you have that experience anyway. Like, it's almost like the experience you're trying to avoid by not being who you are, you end up experiencing because you're holding on to that energy of it.
You almost have to do that full circle sometimes. Like, you start there, you're just like, but it depends how quickly you're there for. And I think that's the judge of how much you've evolved as a person. When you're there for like months, sometimes years, you're
you've got a lot of growth to do. But if you're there quickly, it's like, yep, couple days, yep, time to move on. All right, my brain goes there, but I know that's just not me. That's just the ego. That's just all these things that are just stopping me from talking. I'm like, how quickly can you get out of that space, and how quickly can you go back into authenticity?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And it's like a muscle, isn't it? And it's so funny because I feel like after I shared that podcast, and then, you know, with my baking, like started baking and then did I was on this high, like this vulnerability high, I've learned. And it was I was like writing it. I was like, woo, this is life. This is who I am.
I'm free.
I'm free. And then life, and then you get confronted again. And like you're saying, like, how long are you going to sit with it, you know, and hang on to it before you're like, oh, let go and go on to the next thing. So, yeah, thank you. Circling back, thank you for that was the like linchpin for me to just go, nah, I have to live a life for me and who I am.
And like Maddie, your friend, said, like, she knows who you are. People know the space that you live in, the space of the holistic life, the natural mama. You moved up to the sunny coast to get away from the hectic life. Like, it just makes sense. So, you know, I feel that it's not as taboo anymore either. Like, a lot of people do their research, and a lot of people don't just take the doctor's word for it. People actually look into things these days with the power of the internet and the power of connection. It's not as taboo. And I think maybe like even 5 years ago, a couple of years ago when Frankie was born, that would have been a whole different story for you if you did it then.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's that being ready to really step into the unknown. Like, I didn't know who I would be, and this is what I guess a muscle that I'm still exercising. Or I know whenever I talk about something really vulnerable or authentic, I feel like I'm going to cry. But it's a muscle I'm still exercising because for so long, my life, and this may be off track, but my life was so rigid and so planned and so conscious of, okay, I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to go talk to everyone about my decision and make sure my decision's okay for not only for me, probably not for me, for everyone else. And then I'd get all their input. And it was just like, I never got into flow because I was always so conscious. And so the muscle I'm trying to exercise right now is I don't go and talk to a lot of people when I'm making big decisions now. I literally am just like, this is really scary. I'm feeling really unsafe. I'm really in a state of fear, but I'm going to move and I'm going to move. And it's slowly getting easier. And I practice with the baking and, you know, sharing it on Instagram and going to choir. Like, I practice in playful ways to be able to do it in bigger ways.
Expression is such a powerful gift when it comes to being in flow state and working out actually what's going on in that inner dialogue. Like, and this is the thing, what we can tend to do sometimes, like, you know, when we write a draft email, so like we write an email and like, say you're about to resign, right? And you've got a little bit of anger behind it. So you're writing the draft and then you read it. You're like, oh, fuck, that's pretty aggressive. Let's delete that. Some people send that draft email to that person and it's like, you can't take that back. You just can't. So it's really beautiful being able to like, to sit with it, because people don't have to see your processing. No one has to see that. You have to be able to sit with it. And because emotions come and go, they flow so beautifully, but they don't have to be you and consume you. And it's really important to sometimes just let that shit pass. So then you could be like, all right, how do I really feel? Like, what is really going on? What do I really need to do next? And this is why it's really important to do things like you were saying, have hobbies, you know, do things of expression like choir and baking and all these beautiful modalities, or not modalities, all these hobbies that you're doing.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful expression, and you start figuring out who you are and putting yourself out in the world. And that's where the medicine is, because you can start putting the pieces together of what you are and who you are.
For sure. Absolutely. I can't agree more. And I feel like having gosh, I feel like I knew I always bring up death, but it's me, so of course.
Having part of life.
It's part of life. Having Dad die last year, Dad was a big I don't know what the right word would be. Like, it was a sounding board, but maybe like
catalyst.
Like, I always sought his approval You know, when I was picking
okay.
courses and stuff like that, it was like, should I do this? You know, I always went there. I was always seeking, and looking back
Like
now,
permission?
absolutely permission.
Mm.
I was a little girl, you know, even at 35, I was a little girl being like, Daddy, you know, is this okay? Will you still love me if? Will you still love me if I do this? And having him die, again, not that you're happy about someone dying, but looking at like the gratefulness of what you learned from those experiences was like, okay, if I don't have to prove myself to him, if I don't have to seek his approval, I can apply that to everyone else. I don't have to seek anyone's approval. And not just because he's died. I think I would have gotten to this part of my life anyway. Who am I? Like you're saying, self-expression, the hobbies, even though they are like so light and playful, were very new to me. Like I'd never really done anything unless it was purposeful, showing achievement or pleasing someone else. So the fact that I just like, yeah, it was huge. So when I started baking, I went to a gluten-free bake course because I was literally sick of buying shit gluten-free bread that was just filling up tummies with crap. It was so foreign. Like it could be such a nothing for other people, but for me, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I went and I loved it, and I was like, this is so new. Like I love this. I don't give a shit like what anyone thinks of it. I love this, and this is awesome. And then I don't know why I wanted to share it on Instagram, and I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to share it. And then I loved sharing it, and it just became about me, and it was so powerful. It was literally just baking bread, but it was so powerful for me to do it because I wanted to do it, and I didn't care what anyone else thought about it. I loved it.
I love it. I love it. I
Oh,
love just you seeing you be you. There is
yeah,
there is nothing about those stories that show any form of not being truthful to who you are. It is so fucking pure that it just makes me smile so much, and it just gives me confidence to do something like that. Like you're just you. You're just wearing your bum around clothes, you got no makeup on, you're in your kitchen, you're fucking being the funniest version of you. And it's just like you remind me of the girl, like we went to high school together for people who don't know, but you bring me back to high school of just you being that funny little bitch. That's what you remind me of. I just want to laugh because it's just so it's so contagious, and I love it, and it's so pure. It's just you elevating as a person, and I can see that, and I'm just it's so beautiful, babe. You should be so proud of yourself to be that
thanks,
vulnerable to the world,
Yeah.
and how it fills your cup up. Like it's so small, but see how important it is to do things to fill up your cup, because it gives you that power.
Yeah.
And then when you start getting feedback, you're like, did you actually watch that?
Oh, it's really funny when I talk to people and they know things that I've done. Like the starter is jelly bean, and people talk about jelly bean. I'm like, oh my God.
How do you know
Somebody's listening to me. But as you were saying, with it being contagious, this was the most beautiful thing. Like, for those of you that haven't watched me on Instagram, look, it's literally me in old Kmart clothes because I love them dearly, baking in our rental kitchen. Like, there is nothing glamorous. The lighting's bad. I literally just got a tripod.
I was about to say, you got the tripod, babe. You got the tripod.
I got the tripod, so nailing it. I'm a pro now. But I literally just got the tripod. But what was happening was the more I was me, like just me doing what I love, the more people were being them and doing what they love. And I would get these messages like, you're such an inspiration. I can't believe like how much you don't care what people think. I still care what people think. I've started baking. I've started doing this. I've started doing that because you're just doing it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like for me, I'm just baking in my kitchen, having fun. But it literally, as you said, like gave people permission or held a space or created a space for other people to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this now. And circling all the way back to what you were saying before about the voices in your head, I've had people that in my mind, I'm like, imagine what X, Y, and Z are going to think of you, message me and say, wow, this is so great, or it's making me laugh, or I went and did this because you showed me that you could be brave. Like what you think and all your fears and what you actually receive when you're your truest expression in the world, like unapologetically, it just is, unparalleled.
It's such a beautiful thing. Like even with this podcast alone, like when people start saying things or like, you're thinking about homeschooling. I'm like, how do you know that? I'm like, oh my God, I got a podcast. Oops. It's like all these things that I was like, oh shit, I forgot that I actually spoke about that. But it's so intentional, but you just forget. You're just like, oh my God, people are actually listening. And it's beautiful because you're putting your full expression out there. You're being completely raw and authentic, and you're being just who you are. And the people that are going to come to you are the ones that align with you, and the ones that don't, that's all good. Like, I don't want the ones to come to me that don't align with me. I don't want that. So I'm happy. I'm really happy to really connect with people at different levels and really show who I am. And I hope it actually helps you be who you want to be. And that's the whole point. Vulnerability is such a powerful, powerful thing. And when you master it and when you get good at it, and when people can start seeing that and start reflecting that, man, it's power in itself. It really is.
Yeah, completely agree.
And the fact that you're doing that, I just want to touch back on what you were saying before about the choir. You joined a choir.
Oh my
This
gosh.
is amazing. Tell me a bit about it.
Okay, so Eddie, Edwina, she's incredible. So when you think choir, I think everyone's thinking I'm standing in a church.
Church. Oh, happy days. Oh, happy days. That's what I think.
But Jesus was. We can think about Jesus. We went to a Catholic school. Anyone can sing about Jesus. Anyway.
Sister Act styles, like Whoopi Goldberg.
Bad. We're all dressed up in our nun outfit. No. But the choir, so Adrena created it. I think she moved from Perth, and I'll give you her details to tag because she's just, her music is phenomenal.
I'll chuck it in the show notes.
And she's, I guess I don't know, I'm not a singer-songwriter, but I'm assuming all singer-songwriters like intuitive writers to some degree, what they create. Anyway, but she will like intentionally sit in a space and write a song. So she had these 5-week terms that I always wanted to go to and couldn't get to. And then she was like, I'm just going to do one-offs, like workshops. It's easy for mums. It's one afternoon. Let's see if we can teach a song. So she will go away and whatever space she's going, like whatever space she's in, whatever she's going through, what's going on in the world, she'll intentionally write a song for us to learn. And it's called a loop choir because it loops. So you always sing 2 rounds of the song.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's just a bit about the background. It was amazing. So it was always in the back of my mind. And then she did the workshop and I was like, yeah, I'm just committed. I'm going to sign up. This was after the podcast release on my platform. This was after the baking. And I had, as I said, I had that vulnerability high. So I was like, I need my next thing. I need to, pump those muscles again. And I signed up for the choir, and I had a friend coming who joined like the day before, but my experience leading up to it was like, I'm going into this completely alone. So I'm not going into this group of women, and it is just for women, where I can like go sit with my bestie or anything. Like I was rocking up alone, and it happens that my friend was late that day as well. So I got there. Fuck, I was so awkward. There was all these women and they kind of knew each other, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I like sat down at the front by myself. Like I intentionally did not sit in a group. Like there was women there smiling at me, and I like went and sat alone. Like it was so weird. I was so weird.
Little girl starting school again and like moving school for the first time and not knowing anyone.
Oh, for sure. And it's amazing to, like, on reflection, to watch yourself, what you do when you're out of your comfort zone. And I was not coping very well at that time.
No, just like was that fight, flight, or freeze? You just freeze. Like, what the fuck do I?
Fully froze. I was like, this is so fucked. What am I doing? I want to run out the door. But then I was like, stop being a dick. My friend was pretty late. I had to go and join some other women and just introduce myself, which I normally would. So I think it was...
You're a Leo, babe.
I know. Bad. I think, again...
You're letting us down.
I was like this little, like this little tiny baby, like, help me.
No.
Oh, it was crazy. It was crazy. But then I was like, all right, be a grown-up, badass woman and go and make some
big
friends.
Girl pants on.
Put your bloody big girl pants on. And I went and sat with some women, and then it was just, it was one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. So the actual songs she writes about, so they're all based about women essentially, but they're just so powerful. And that one was particularly powerful because I could literally pick it up and transfer it onto any woman's life, but Chantel's life in particular. And
Chantel's your sister.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, for those that they don't know. Chantel's my sister that took her own life last year. Whew, always a big one. And there's things that I do since she died that I know she's with me more. And when I'm putting my big girl pants on and doing things that are outside my comfort zone, she's like right there. She's like, we got this, babe. Yeah, it's huge. And I'm just going to take the long way back to the choir. But a lot of people have asked me, because I share about grief a lot as well. So the baking is very light and fun, but sometimes I get real deep when I bake and chat. And a lot of the time it's about grief and my experience of grief and moving through grief and things like that. And that's so funny. I've just blanked.
She was with you when you do hard things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was one of the things, just circling back. So, yeah. So people ask me, they say, how can you be grateful? You're on your Instagram, you always talk about being grateful. I make the joke that, the year everyone died. But I'm really grateful for that year because I wouldn't be who I am without that year, and really, really who I am now. Like, my life will never be the same for the better forever because of that year. And because when you are that low, you can only go up. And so I'm incredibly grateful because I don't think I would have done these experiences without her. And then she is just there. And that energy is there. So not only did I join this choir, and as a recovering people pleaser, I can actually exercise using my voice, so by singing and just embracing that and the actual experience of singing out loud in a group being seen, but I have her there, and it's just, it's just next level. So the choir is like, yes, I go and sing with a group of women one Sunday a month and sing these amazing songs that Edwina created, but it's just so healing on so many levels to be able to express yourself in that way.
How powerful. I listened to one of the songs when you told me about her. I listened to one of the songs and it was just about the mother, the woman. Oh, holy shit. Is that the one that you're talking about?
Yeah, so that was the last one we sung because she, obviously with everything going on in the world at the moment, with the wars and things like that, Edwina just held that space and she wanted to contribute something to the world, an energy that was healing for all the mothers that have experienced pain within that war and within, life as well and loss. So she created it about a group of women seeing the mother or the woman that has experienced such incredible loss.
Yeah, that was powerful stuff. When I listened to that, I was like, whew, I had to take a moment because it was just so, you could tell that she put all her full expression into that. And this is the thing too, when you're creating things out of that beautiful base of love and pure authentic, just authenticness of who you are, it transcends through other people's souls. Like the connection that you just grip onto other people when it pushes out. It's crazy how powerful something like that is. Because when this is going back to being inauthentic.
Inauthentic, yeah.
Inauthentic.
We can give it either.
When you're inauthentically, it doesn't feel nice. And this is what I was saying back before. It doesn't connect to people. It just kind of goes past them. But when it's authentic like that, it's just like a bang. It just hits you.
It connects you.
Big time. It's really beautiful. And I really loved it. And I'm so glad that you're a part of something like that. So back to how you said that you've been wanting to do it for a while. Is this because that your friend that lives up there was telling you about it? Or did you just see her on Instagram?
I think coming up here, I just saw on Instagram, I see it's very connected. I think it's connected anywhere, but it's very connected up here. And I have heard that I think you and I have spoken about it, maybe in Floyd's podcast, like when you're in flow state and when you're where you're meant to be in the world, whether it's physically or emotionally, spiritually, energetically, you would just put out beams, for lack of a better word, or connection, and you will just start creating a network of people that are resonating where you are, right? and that happens so much up here. Like I was saying to my husband Matt the other day, I was like, oh, we're so lucky. We've only been here less than a year, and we've got really good friends. Like we've got just a base, and it's really beautiful because it hasn't been that long. But I found Edwina through that. Like, I met this person and they knew that person, so you follow them and chat with them, and then they share that, and it's just all very organic. And up here, I think more broadly is when people are offering services, choir, whatever it is, it's very much accepted understanding of if you're ready for it, you will come type of thing. Like it'll be presented at the right time and the right people will come. Of course, like I know Edwina, her goal is to have like 100 women sing one of her songs. And at the last choir group, there was 40. So she's certainly getting there. But it's amazing. Her journey, there was 6 at the start. She was lucky. She's like, I'm lucky someone showed up. And so it's the process, hey? But yeah, I found her like quite organically, and it's just really resonated.
I love that so much. Just like when you see people take risks and start with absolutely nothing, like you said, 6 people, like that's still decent. But when you start from so low and you're just like, oh my God, are people going to show up? Am I going to be good enough? Like that shitty egotistic inner dialogue starts picking up. But then you're like, shut up, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be in that ego space for 2 seconds, and then I'm going to be like, action is power, so let's just do it. And now she's got 40 women. That's huge. I love seeing stuff like that. It just makes it so it just makes everything worth it. It's like it doesn't have to be amazing at the start. Nothing has to be amazing at the start, but you put the work in, you put that vulnerability and authenticity in it, and it will happen. Just keep going, one step after another, one step after another. Like the brick analogy, like you want to build a brick wall, but you just got to go one brick at a time and stop looking at the big picture. Just focus on that single brick. And then before you know it, you'll step back. You're like, oh my God, I'm halfway there. So it's just the clarity happens. You just have to keep going. And I love that so much. We don't have to get answers straight away.
No, I agree. And this is so perfect because this is exactly what I'm contending with at the moment, is having these big dreams and wanting to wake up and the dreams are there. And at the moment, like what I do now is I go and look at a lot of information and listen to a lot of podcasts and people that are, have the brick wall. How did they get to the brick wall? And that's one of the things that I've been hearing a lot lately it's brick by brick. And often it's not the brick wall that you want. It's who you want what you're going to be when you've got the brick wall. But the experience and the process of becoming that person is what it is. Like that's where the journey. That's the journey, right? Isn't it?
Not about the destination.
No, it's like so cliche, but it totally is what it is.
Oh, 100%. It's the journey. It's the company. It's the people you meet along the way. It's the lessons that you learn. It's the wisdom that you collect. It's everything.
Yeah,
it sure is. The journey is just the bonus,
isn't
and
it?
just the goal.
Yeah,
that got you there. Without that, you wouldn't have had all these beautiful things. That's why the goals are so important. But yeah, it's really hard too, though, when you're going through motherhood too, when you're raising young kids, because things are very slow. They're much slower, and it's not like you can put all your eggs in one basket and just hustle, because being a mum takes so much of your time and energy. So it's really, really hard doing both. But being able to have something for yourself, like just this podcast alone has just been so amazing for me. Just having a room where I can go and speak to people and connect with people and talk with people on a level that I enjoy so much. Like, fuck the weather talk. I love this shit. I love this stuff. It just fills my cup up so much of just being so vulnerable and raw and deep and tell me deepest, darkest fears now. Like, I love it so much. And I think just having that, and it just encourages me to be a better mother. And, wherever this ends up, wherever this goes, I know right now it's my purpose is to connect with people that are really aligning with me, because it's filling my cup on the journey of it also. So I, doing hard things as well as being a mum, it's not easy. It's not. So seeing people do that, and even in the choir, I've seen women, bringing their kids along with them. And
Oh,
it's like, imagine being a kid and hearing words like that
oh,
amongst women community. Like, fuck, like you'd be like
it's insane.
superhuman afterwards. These kids would, can you
Yeah,
imagine
and
like
it's,
that, like we are vibration, we're energy. And when you fill up
yeah.
a room like that, wow.
And that's the thing. It's so incredible. We had a woman that's come a couple of times, or the 2 times that I went, she's been pregnant with a baby girl. And it's like, imagine giving that to your baby before you give birth. Like it's just beautiful. But yeah, there are some boy babies, but it's, I don't know, just, it is what it is. There's more girls. And it's just this amazing space. And you're right, like, it just moves you, and it would move them, and it's so authentic and it's so organic and real. Just going back to what you said before about like when you put those expressions into the world, I think this is a thing where I have a lot of compassion for people, and even myself still, when there's parts of yourself that you're still trying to, or when we all have parts of ourselves that we're trying to hide, and when you're not your truest self and you're not sitting in that space, you're kind of constructed. Who you are in your expression of the world is very controlled, because you want to make sure people think I've got the nicest clothes and I don't wear old Kmart t-shirts and, whatever it is. And I know that experience of being really rigid. Like, I'm a clinical neuropsychologist and I have all this together, and it's very constructed's the only kind of word that's coming to me. But then when you step into that vulnerability, and as we were saying, it's a muscle, and you keep doing it, like with the podcast, you'll do next episode, and you talk about bigger and bigger topics or whatever it might be. You put this flow and this beautiful energy where people can, like this is saying what you were saying, people can only connect and attach to that, and then be their own flow and bring their own authentic energy into the space. So it's such a like a limitation of our society that we're all trained from birth to be put up this front, and it actually keeps us so disconnected, or we create false connection. We'll talk about our mutual friend, or we'll complain about our job, or we'll do something like that instead of sitting, like you're saying, in those deep conversations and that beautiful expression of who we are, and actually being human and actually experiencing that as it should be experienced.
Oh, babe, 100%. It's the way it should be experienced. That's exactly right. Like, it can take time. It can take time for us to really to understand that and see that and have the people around us to connect with that. But just showing you, like, the minute. So obviously, when your father and your sister passed away, that really gave you the want and the motivation to pack up and leave Melbourne. But it's so funny. The minute that you left, everything just happened for you. Like, it was like bang, 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 work, this, that, kids, whatever. It was like, it just like when things are supposed to be, they just happen. It's like you proved that you could do a hard thing of packing up and moving 2 young boys, your family, selling up your house and just leaving. Like, how old was your baby? How old was Arlo when you did this?
Arlo was like six months.
Yeah, that's massive, man.
5,
That's
6 months.
huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. And you just packed up, and then the minute, like, I felt like it was a little bit hard at the start. Like, you had to move again a couple of times, but then it was just like bang, bang. Like, everything was in flow state, and things just started happening to you. You started meeting the right people. You started doing things that are allowing you to pull out that authentic Courtney that you are, and be that gift that you can be to other people. Like, I think it's so powerful, honey. You should be so proud of yourself. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, as I said, I'm so grateful for it. I was so low, and when you were that low, when life gives you that many fucking big lemons, so you have to laugh because you're like, oh fuck, can it get any worse? You just have a choice. Like, I will always be sad that my sister took her own life, forever. I'll always be sad that I watched my dad die, to the point where, like, I saw him every day until he died. I saw him on the day he died that morning. I wasn't there when he passed. I didn't want to be. I had really bad experiences after Chantal died, with, like, just a lot of complicating life factors and what she shared. And there was very messy death. I think suicide is a more messy death. there was a lot of factors with Dad. It was a very, like, I love him. He's my dad. But it was a very complicated relationship, as I think a lot of relationships are, very complicated. And we had another blow after he died as well. So, I had Chantal die, I had the Arlo born, which was beautiful, but again, complicated in postpartum with grief. Dad die. And then we had, we found out something about Dad that he'd, taken. And again, I did want to share this on here. I don't know why, but I did. I think just to show people the two things, which I'll come back to. But after he died, so I thought our relationship was a certain way. And growing up, my dad showed us love. And this is the beautiful thing. This is my point, I think, that there is always good and bad. When you are at your hardest moment and you're like, how am I going to get forward? You will get forward. There will be a silver lining. And I think, like, you would know this from some of the experiences that you've had, like, I will come back to this and I will see the lesson here. Anyway, so I had, Dad die, and the way he used to show us how he loved us was through buying things and money and things like that, which was good and bad, because all I ever wanted was his connection, and that's all we all want, isn't it? And then his ultimate expression of, for me, you're not worthy enough with you're not good enough, was being cut out of his will, and not knowing that was coming after he had died. There was no expectation of we need to have all this money or anything like that, but just thinking that the relationship was something and it wasn't. And that being the ultimate blow to my self-worth. Sitting with all of that now and the shame of that, the shame of Chantal's suicide, and like what that means to have, like, what does that mean about your childhood if you have a sister that's suicided, and what's going to come out, what are people going to find out about me, and all that noise and that messiness, and what if people find out about Dad, and what, and it gives you this incredible power, because there is nothing else. Like, in that point in time, nothing else could have gone wrong. I could only go up. And what I've learned is that it gives you an amazing activation energy. And that's what it gave me. As you say, Matt and I were like, after we found out about the will and stuff, like, we had this beautiful funeral for him and we're in the stages of grief, and that came quite quickly. We were always going to move to Queensland, but then that blow happened and it was like just, sunk a bit lower. Again, not for any monetary benefit, but just of like, what does this mean about me if my dad didn't even consider me in this way? Like, that was a really heavy space for me to sit in. But then it was just like a fucking rocket. It was like a rocket of like, okay, I get it. I've experienced two types of deaths. I've experienced this ultimate, in my mind at the time, you are completely worthless. I wouldn't even mention your name in this document because you are that worthless to me. That's how it felt, the energy. And then I just took off. And as you say, we moved. I got a job. It was challenging. We had to move house once. But then I was like, no, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to reflect here. I'm going to own all of these parts of me. I have a sister that took her own life, and I will always be that person. I have a dad that died after a long extended period. I had a baby in between, and I wasn't the best mum for that period. And I'm still learning to be a good mum. I used to drink too much and play up and be stupid, and now I don't drink, and I'm organic, and I'm non-vax, and I'm a neuropsych, and I'm all of these things. And what I've realized through all of these experiences, and this is what I want other people to understand about themselves, is that I can be all of those things. And there is no shame in any of that, because it's my experience and it's my life, and what I do with that, who I become with that, is for me. And I think in that, it gives other people the permission to, you will have your shit however that looks, and you can own that shit. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but you can totally own that shit, and you can become whoever you want because it's your own life. Like, I've had people come to me and be like, and this is just in a playful way, but I'd never bake, and Matt and I were at one stage exploring moving into a tiny home. It's like, I would never live in a tiny home, and I would neither now that I've seen one. But, we explored all these things, and I was like, but that's okay. You don't have to, because you're not me. Like, and this is my journey, and this is my expression, and these are my experiences, and I'm allowed to take with them what I want. And
expression of who you are. It's just
expression.
It's so powerful. It's such a powerful thing. And like your stories are not who you are. They're never who you are. They're just a part of your story, and they can create the versions of you are from yourself, like your situations have done. They've given you the power and the motivation to really step outside of your comfort zone and just be who you want to be, and be like, fuck it, like life is so flimsy and we can go at any moment, and this is just an example of that. So let's just be who we want to be, and let's just live our lives and be who we want. Fuck it.
Fuck it. Honestly, a big fuck it to that. I know. And fuck it with a lot of love and kindness. Like, but totally fuck it. Like, really. I can,
always. Like, it's just, what's the point of having restraint? It's like, I feel that, like, when you feel like you have to be a particular person, it's like there's two cords on the back of your shoulder blades pulling you up, and it's like having you like a sign of a cross of just being held back, and you're just wanting to move, but you just feel so stuck. But it's like having those things that just cutting those cords and being like, I am me. I can do whatever I want to do, and I don't care. I don't care what you think. Like, it's none of my business what you think about me. It's none of my business. Like, that's fine, because that's your shit. My shit is being the best mother to my kids, best wife to my husband, and the best friend and the best daughter and the best sister I could be, and, best cousin, or whatever the relationship is, the people that I really, really trust in my life. But the rest, we all have them. We all have these relationships where sometimes they just don't serve us.
Yeah.
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Alignment is a beautiful thing, and perspective is a beautiful thing, and hindsight, all these things that give you the lens to realize that I'm allowed to be who I want to be without your permission.
Yeah.
But it's not them, it's us. We have to allow that cut. We have to allow that to be like, I'm free from that. I'm liberated from that. I don't need that. But, it's beautiful that we do have these really big things in our lives that can push us in that direction. But it's unfortunate that we wait for those things to push us in those directions.
Oh, babe, feels for that.
Imagine making these big decisions every single day without having death or loss or whatever it is come into our world. Imagine the power.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just not our lives, unfortunately. Sometimes we just really need that big kick up the ass.
We do, for sure. And I think that's a thing, like going back, as a child, you need to attach. Like, you need to attach to parents. You need to know that you're worth something to your parents. Otherwise, as an infant, you will die. Like, you have to attach to something.
Survival,
right? And then we carry that forward, and we think, I need you to tell me I'm worthy. I need you to tell me. And then we transfer it. We don't just say, Daddy, Mummy, I need you to tell me I'm worthy. We say, boyfriend, friend, worker, employee, tell me I'm worthy. Tell me I'm worthy.
Tell me I'm good enough.
Tell me I'm good enough. Tell me what I can do to be okay in your eyes. And the thing that we're not taught is you get to decide. Anyone can look at my experiences or anyone else's experience and be like, wow, if your dad did that to you, if your sister did that to you, that means you are unworthy, unlovable, whatever it is, whatever that word is for you. Everyone's got their big shame word, I guess, or shame words that they think about themselves in the shadows. But a funny experience I had, which I really understood and got this the other day, these challenging relationships, as you're saying, like, they don't serve you. But I think when you're not in it, you can zoom out and be like, fuck, look at the lessons here. I was talking about, starting this new business and things like that, and I was sharing it with someone and they just ignored me. And I was like, fuck, Like, it was so black and white that I said something about it and they just looked at me, heard it, and changed the subject. And I was like, whoa, like, it gave me a lot of information. But then I had, again, that activation energy from the pain of these experiences and for the pain of sitting with someone that just ignored you and being like, fuck you, mate, like, to them and, you know, to whoever else. But, like, I get to decide my worth. And it was, like, so freeing. Like, I get to decide. No one else. If I think I'm worthy, I'm worthy. And I'll have my own expectations. Like, I'll offer services that reflect that, or I'll you know, if I'll run every morning and that's my sense of worth. Like, I get to decide that I'm worthy. And
that judgment, that instant moment where you could have gone two ways with that one moment. You could have, like, let that consume you to a point of, you're rejecting me, you're judging me for who I am and for my actions, therefore I'm going to change my actions because you judged me. Or you could just move that chess piece over along and you just keep going. And this is the thing, like, it's, you know, just these chess pieces in front of us. It's always the way, and we're always moving in certain directions. And, you know, they always, like, people say, like, there's two people in our lives. They're lessons or road or speed humps. And this is the thing. Sometimes you just got to go straight over those ones, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's all that.
Because it's not about you. It's got nothing to do with you. Their reaction was, they went into a mind frame of whatever it was. I'm not going to assume, but it usually is, or she's doing big things, so I'm not doing nothing, so therefore I'm a shit person. She thinks I'm a shit person, rah, rah. You know, like, these are the inner dialogue of that. So deep down, it's their insecurity. It's got 100%. Nothing to do with you moving forward. You just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And I love when you can actually separate that. Sometimes it's again, it's another muscle.
Oh, and it's so, don't get me wrong, and this is the thing I learned after my first vulnerability high. We're human. It's going to hurt. It fucking hurts when someone ignores you. You're like, oh, this is super painful to sit in this space of just being totally ignored. But all right, here we are. But yeah, like you say, you get choice and you get to pivot. But yeah, circling back, because I think you mentioned this a bit earlier, right at the start, about responsibility. One of the biggest things that I've learned through all of this as well is that I'm not responsible for other people's feelings. In saying that, I'm a kind person and I would never deliberately go and hurt someone else. But if I'm doing something, and, you know, everyone's had this experience, like, someone goes and does something and you're like, oh gosh, I should be doing that. Why am I doing that? And then, like you just said, Steph, you're like, oh my God, I'm not a good mum because I should have my kids in organic nappies and I don't. But it's really hard to get the organic nappy, whatever it is for you. We all have that experience, but it is your feelings are your responsibility. And if someone else is reacting to your life, it's not your space or your job or anything like that to make that better for them, I guess.
It's not. It's there. It's all theirs. Just like sometimes it's all ours. Sometimes we, like, you know, even like when you have little tiffs and stuff with your partner or your husband or whoever, your mum, your dad, whatever, you tend to, like, just project. You didn't do this, Steph. You hurt my feelings. You know, and it's just like, really, like, why did I need to do that? Sometimes it's just like taking that moment. And that's the thing, because we just want to be heard. And I feel that we've spoken about this before. You know, a little childhood wound of mine is not feeling heard. And when I'm not heard, it fucking hurts.
Yeah.
So, like, and this is the thing, like, we recognize that. So when we have big reactions to little things, taking that time to be like, why did I do that? Why? Instead of just, like, projecting and losing it at them, it's just like trying to analyze it, because I do it, and now I'm like, my lesson probably in the last couple of years, when, like, I think it was when it's your immediate family, like your husband or whatever, you kind of, you know, let a little bit more emotion out. But when it's but when it's not your people that you live with, anybody outside your home where you can't hide, you tend to, like, giving it a couple of days, just giving it some time to simmer a little bit and not just explode. That is such a powerful lesson that I've learned as well, because going back to the draft email, like, this is it. This is the draft email versus an email after you've sat with a couple of days can look completely different. And it's always after the emotions have settled and simmered where you're just like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't say that first one.
Yeah.
Because it was different. But allowing that to really sit with your emotions and be just being like just sitting in stillness and silence. I feel that is such medicine. But allowing things like you were saying before with your hobbies and all that sort of stuff, and taking responsibility for your own actions. And if we all could do that, can you imagine the world that we'd live in? Yeah, you don't have to jump too far on the internet to see people have conversations where they walk away because they can't handle it. And this is the thing where that person's left feeling unheard, and that other person's left because they don't know how to communicate their emotions, so they get angry and walk away.
Yeah.
And it's just this big disconnect we have with humans at the moment where we're not good with our words because we're so consumed by our emotions.
And this is one of the things that I think takes a lot, not necessarily a lot, because everyone's journey would be different with it, but that silence and that space that you talk about, a lot of the time, if you've done no reflection or healing or, whatever you want to call it, personal development, growth work, whatever, there's no circuit breaker. It's like emotion, reaction, words, reaction, and it's like continuous. There's not even a little glitch in the system there. So it's like they said that, blah, blah. And what we don't realize is that we store so much. Like the brain is so amazing. It is designed to keep us safe first and foremost, as most brains are with other species. But it's designed to keep us safe. It's designed to look for patterns of behavior to keep us safe. Like it always links back to the safety, and it will never give us a world that is incongruent with our thoughts. And so this is why things like, your words choose your world, I guess buzz phrases like that are so real, because your brain will literally create what you're thinking. So if you're like, I always get stuck in traffic, your experience will always be getting stuck in traffic. And, it's just because it wants to keep you safe. It's not going to give you a world that's incongruent with what you're thinking, because otherwise you'll feel crazy, and it doesn't want you to feel crazy. I am circling back to what you said though. So there's that brain, and there's that continuity that'll always give you what you need, even if it's shit and uncomfortable. It's familiar, so people will often stay in that. But with what you were saying, it's just like this reaction, and there's no, even with some people, even detachment from, I've just had a thought that, Steph has said something mean, and it's just Steph said something mean, boom. And I think that's what a lot of us, and it takes practice and work, can often get better at, is why am I having this experience? What is my body telling me when Steph or whoever says this to me? And like you said, taking that space to actually reflect before we react is often where the gems lie, because it's like, wow, this isn't actually about the fact that Steph said my Kmart jumpers are disgusting. It's about the fact that I don't feel worthy when I wear Kmart jumpers. Or do you know what I mean? It's about taking that responsibility back. When our power is constantly with another person, you are so in disalignment with who you are, because your power's out there with everyone. When you start to bring it back and be like, wow, Steph said that because Steph is really insecure when she wears Kmart jumpers. It's got nothing to do with me. There's this peace that you can give yourself. What I often say, and I say it in work and I say it in life, and I think everyone says that, and I do it myself, is that we look at other people to fill our emotional cup, instead of, again, going back to the responsibility thing, being responsible for our own stuff, healing that in a way that is going to give us that freedom, and then moving forward with it and allowing other people to be themselves as well and do that for themselves. We often feel like we have to make all these people happy. We have to fill up all these other people's cups so everyone's okay and everyone loves us, as opposed to coming back to loving self first, because that then allows someone else to level up and love themselves first. And then you start getting that mutual connection.
Because we do. I think when we're in that space of blame, we tend to just distract ourselves further with technology or movies or whatever, rather than really being still. And someone told me this a little while ago about the bubble, and just picturing like you're in this big bubble around you, and this big, beautiful, whatever color that you picture it, and then just your energy just really coming back and pulling into that bubble and just sitting in that space and just feeling it and just be like, they don't own me. They don't own my energy. They don't. That doesn't. It can be a situation. It doesn't have to be a person. It could be anything, like just coming back to your power and not being so attached to things. That's been a really beautiful gift as well, where you can just come back to self and really just sit with it and just be, because at the end of the day, that's all we really have. We can't control anything but our reactions. And it's the hardest thing. It's such a hard thing, but especially when we love with so much, or we want to build something so big for our family, it's just really, we put so much energy into that cup, and that's all we're thinking about. But there's our family going, hey, remember me?
Exactly.
That thing that we just want so badly, whatever it is, it's it will always be there. It's just that segregating that time and understanding that the biggest thing is coming back to self, so you can actually see that, and zooming out so you can see that full perspective of what actually is going on. I think that's a big one.
Yeah, that's one of the things at the moment, in relationship and in work, and because it's life, right? You're going to have challenges. We grow, but that's why we're here, to grow and experience. But one of the things I'll say to myself, if I've really, like you're saying, like when you get really fucking angry or triggered or something with it, you're like, I'm trying now to take the observer perspective. Once that has cooled a little bit, what is this showing me? Why am I so uncomfortable when someone says that to me? Why am I, and just, again, giving yourself like your own reset, or your own, what's that word, like this switch, the trigger switch, or whatever it is. What's that thing I'm trying to say? I can't even think of it. Circuit breaker. Your own circuit breaker in your mind to be like, I had a conversation with, Frankie, my 4-year-old, and kids can bring it up. And he said this, and I was like, what is that about? And noticing your own body, and it's amazing when you almost detach from it and look in on it, what can come from that.
Man, it's a powerful thing. And kids are just so innocent, aren't they? And they can do it. They can just bring it up and just like, hang on a second. So they're not coming from a place of trying to piss me off. Obviously, they're 4.
Yeah, right.
But why does it piss me off, or why does it hurt, or why does it feel a little bit uncomfortable, or it's like words have such power. They really are. They can change the look on your face in a 2-second instant, can't they? Especially when you're really shit at hiding your emotions.
Yeah, bad.
Me, I can't hide my emotions. I'm really pretending that everything's okay. I can't do that. This is one thing.
Yeah, but it's so. But what you were saying before, though, like about the ego and jumping out of that, is that how long am I going to sit in this for? And like, are you going to sit and pretend about it, or are you just going to get real and then sort it out and then move forward with it? Yeah.
But what do you do to jump out of that? Like, what are the things that you personally use to get out of that space of just spiraling?
Great question. Oh, mate, this is so relevant. I have literally been contending with this. I'm going to select my words here. This business, setting up this business and needing a space. And I have been so focused on finding a space. And it has been like, I think I've looked at every commercial property on the Sunshine Coast in the last 2 weeks. It's ridiculous. And it just wasn't in flow. Nothing felt right. I think this is a bigger, like, 2-part to this question. It's about honouring yourself and, your higher self and what it is that you really want, but also, getting out of that bind. For me now, what I've realised is that I am human, of course, and sometimes I need to sit in it. Sometimes I need to experience it and experience the struggle, and now I give myself the space. Now, again, kind of taking that observer perspective, like, I'm really struggling with this space thing at the moment. There's something I'm going to, watching myself in it as opposed to always just sitting in it. That is a big one for me, like almost looking in on the situation. And this sounds so simple, but it's going back and being honest with myself. And that's why we're on the honesty policy. But
That's it,
it
man.
is. It's like with this space thing, just to use a concrete example, I'm a clinical neuropsychologist. I'm going to continue doing that. It is in a very clinical space. I need a setting that is going to provide and allow me to continue that service. My higher self, if I'm really honest, is my play therapy with kids, which is outdoors and messy and will be dirty and like with dirt and things. And we had this dichotomy of like, no, I need this clinical space because I'm a clinical psychologist, but I know who I really am is going to be offering this service to children. And once I got and sat with the discomfort of letting the version of Courtney go that is a clinical neuropsychologist forever and publishes papers and has this prestige to her name, I think when you can be honest with yourself, you don't have to go anywhere else for answers.
No.
You don't.
No, I think
you know.
even just you saying what you're going through at the moment, we're trying to find a space for your work and for your business and what you want under the title that you represent, it just doesn't align. You're not finding anything. But once you can change the title or flex the title or be able to pivot in a direction that still works with that title, but maybe a subtitle or something else that you can work with, like you were saying with the kids. And then boom, you're out of that title. Like sometimes these titles can really bind us to who we are because we're not projecting who we really are.
Yeah.
We're projecting the title.
Yeah.
However, like the word clinical, like these are why words are so powerful. You don't align with that word anymore.
No.
You really don't. So this is just not who you are anymore. Therefore, the space didn't work out. But the minute you break away from that and you be honest, and then you give yourself other possibilities of what you actually want to do as well on top of that, you just got to sometimes give that space and silence and stillness to be like, all right, let's look at this. Let's pull back. Let's check this out again.
Yeah.
And just going back to what you were saying before with the minute that you started promoting the first podcast that we did about the vax, see how it's just like that was like the start, how you said it was the start of being authentic. And now it's like bang, bang, bang. This is who I want. But it's funny, the minute you attach to something that you were in the past, you stop flowing.
Yeah.
And you feel stuck. And then the minute you take that space, things start happening.
For sure. And the only thing I can link it back to is a gym, right? Like you go to the gym and you exercise a muscle. And when you're never exercising, you never know muscle pain. Like you don't know. You're just kind of doing your thing and you never go to the gym and you're all good and things like that. And then you start going to the gym. And I think me sharing the podcast was a bit of a like, whoa, this is a big one because I'm going to the gym for the first time, hey, and I'm like doing my vulnerability thing really on a bigger platform. Like I'm telling, like barely any of our immediate family knew we didn't vax the kids. So this was big for me. And I'm pumping that iron. I'm like, okay. And then you go back the next day and you do it and it gets a bit stronger and it gets a bit stronger. When you stop going to the gym, you feel it. Like when you're not in that flow, you can feel it even more than when you never went to the gym, right? You're like, fuck, I'm missing something. I'm not going to the gym. And that's the stuckness. And so like that muscle, you got to go back and keep pumping it, and it gets quicker and it gets easier every time, and the jumps get a bit bigger because you've already kind of built up that muscle memory. But absolutely, like it is just going, okay, I'm not in flow, and this is the thing with the space. I let myself sit in it for 2 weeks, so that's pretty long for me now to do something that I know isn't right, to the point where I was like close to signing a lease, and I was, oh my poor Matt, I was like talking back and forth about this space. Ultimately, I knew the second I got there it wasn't right. But I had to go through the process of, why isn't this right? What are you letting go of? I had to go through the pain of it. I could have signed the lease, squeezed myself into a little box, made it okay, and been incredibly unhappy and wondered why it didn't work. Or I could have just said, this isn't the right space. I'm scared because I don't have another space and I need one in 6 weeks, but it's not the right space. And that takes more muscle flex because you firstly have to trust, but you have to continually honor who you are.
Yeah, you go where it flows, baby. Simple as that.
Don't you?
And when you feel stuck, like that feeling, like it's so deep. It's so deep when it doesn't feel right. You know. And I just, even like with little things, like just like making decisions or about our family or our son, it's like you wish you said it, but you just like, and then you're like, why didn't I say that? Because I knew that it would have made a little bit my life easier. So practicing that, being honest and being truthful and being like just really listening to that gut, doing it on a smaller micro level, it just makes it easier when it comes to bigger things to really practice that and flex that again. It's like you can't deadlift 120 kilos when you've done nothing. You got to start with the bar. You got to start with 5 kilos. You gradually, and then one day you'll be able to dead 130 kilos with proper form and proper support and whatever that is. And it's the same. You need your support. You need your understanding, you need your perspective, you need your environment, you need all of these things. So you need the equipment, it's just these things that you really do. But yeah, it's a gradual thing. It's such a gradual thing.
And linking back to linking back to what we said before, it's a process. Like, you're right. I didn't go in and just quit my whole job or anything like that. Like, I shared a podcast and then I did this. And then as soon as you start flexing and you build that wall, pump that iron, whatever it is, it gets easier and easier. The thing that I realized, and this is why I love what I've learned about the brain, is that it's a skill, right? Like being vulnerable, being brave, it's a skill. And your brain can't decipher the difference between, if I'm about to share what I mean by this is the experience in the body. Your brain and body can't decipher the difference in the fear of me sharing a podcast and me climbing a mountain in darkness. It's the same fear in our body. So you can do playful things like the choir, where, look, I know I might get a bit embarrassed at the choir, but I know I'm not going to die at the choir from embarrassment. You can do playful things to keep pumping that muscle. And that's what I do now. Like yesterday we went to this beach, and there was like a bit where the beach like flowed into a river, and there was so much seaweed, babe. There was so much seaweed coming from the ocean into this river. I hate seaweed. Like, I just wouldn't even swim in it. Like, it's such a body. And I forced myself.
It's what's in the seaweed that freaks me out. Like, I can't see. If there bugs in there, someone's going to fucking bite me. Like, it's that. It's the unknown.
It's the unknown. It's the fucking unknown. Oh my God, I love that you get this, because like Matt and I have had, because we've been together for like 15 years, we've had multiple times where like I've had to swim over seaweed, or we've gone snorkeling. Like, it's a thing. He knows how much I hate seaweed, and he's like, "What is it?" And I'm like, "I don't know what's down there. I don't know." And how like relevant is that to life, right? Like, I don't know what's coming. And I was, what's in there? And so Frankie's like, I'm going to walk across it. And Matt's like, do it. And Frankie, God love, is so cute, because this is the thing we say to him now. He's like, "Mummy, you can do hard things. You can do hard things." So he's on the sideline and Matt filmed it. So I will share it, right? And I walked across. I was like so scared, and I walked across. And again, it's that muscle. Like, I'm about to do big things in my business and be really vulnerable. I'm going to walk across the seaweed to test out how that feels, like, and have a bit of fun with it. But yeah, it is. It's just.
And did anything bite you?
Nothing. Like, it was a bit uncomfortable, but then I got into the middle of it and I'm like, yes, I'm halfway. And I like got across to the end and then celebrated. Like, it was so
it's
awesome.
Like that kid's storybook. You know that kid's storybook?
Which
you
one?
Can't go over it. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You got to go through it.
Oh,
it's so true. I didn't realize it. That's a metaphor for life. You've got to go through your shit. That story.
Oh my God, I chills.
Isn't it beautiful?
Chills.
Tell me that
love that story. That is amazing.
It's perfect. So that's a beautiful analogy for your seaweed experience.
Yeah. So it doesn't all have to be serious as well. Like.
No, you can have fun with it. You can practice doing hard things on a small level. And this is exactly what I'm going through at the moment with my birth stuff. I'm practicing doing hard things on micro levels. So when that happens, it's all good. Well, not all good, but better. I'm not as scared. So sitting in stillness, sitting in silence have been really powerful things for me as well. Speaking to people like yourself as well about it that have been in similar situations, being really vulnerable about it, and really recognize my energy shift. I think that's a really big one as well. Like, when people actually say to you, wow, like you even look different when you speak about it from, a couple months ago to now, which I've just experienced as well, which was like, all right, there's progression there. People can see that I'm getting better at it. And, it's again, a little bit of recognition as well. But this is the thing, we're social beings. This is the biggest hierarchy when it comes to what we need. It's all good and well practicing being a good person, but like by doing modalities, but the real deal, the test is how you are in social environments. And that's the thing that we really cling on to as humans, because it's such a primitive thing for us, acceptance. And that's all it is. We're social beings. So when we hear things like that, it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be a negative. Like I'm relying on your feedback in order to progress. It's also a bit of, all right, let's keep going. Like it's such a motivator, especially like when you think about work and stuff like that. When your boss gives you the pat on the back, mate, you fucking keep going.
Yeah.
It's that small word that can do so much.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be a negative thing. Like you're not relying on it, because at the end of the day, they're your boss. You want to make them happy because they're paying you. So it doesn't have to be a negative thing.
No, absolutely not. And I think that as well, like linking back to the responsibility, I think it becomes restrictive when you live your life for others. If you were just living your life for others, we are social beings. Absolutely. Like you say, we cannot exist in isolation. You can't express yourself in isolation. You're here to be seen. You're here to connect, and connection for being human is massive, like huge. But the beautiful thing about our relationships, and again, linking back to my love of the brain, is like mirror neurons and things like that. We actually like bounce off each other. Like we reflect. So when you're in that flow and you've made those leaps with the birth, it's reflected back, because that's what you're reflecting out. So it's a really beautiful yardstick of like, wow, I have grown here. I have shifted here, because now the energy that I'm putting out is being reflected back to me where I want it. And it is beautiful. It's like I can relate with work now that I'm leveling up. The clients that are coming in are reflective again, because I've done the work of where I need to be. So that's so beautiful, babe, that you are really owning that for yourself.
Thanks, babe. But it takes work. And it's hard work. It's just really uncomfortable at the start.
Yeah.
Because you're like, why am I so scared?
Yeah.
What is it? Is it failure? Is it people judging me? She's natural, but she ends up having it at a hospital. So her baby at the hospital. So therefore she's not really, I don't know. Like this is just my inner dialogue. This is nothing to do with what people have actually said to me.
No,
this is just the shit that comes in my head.
For sure.
And like just taking that assumption out and being like, hang on a second. No, it's got nothing to do with that. Let's focus on what I do really want. And for me, the big shifts for me were, what's my why? And what is my why for wanting this? And when your why is crystal fucking clear, it's huge. It's huge. It's being able to understand that, all right, and what stopped you from doing it last time? And for me personally, a big thing was I didn't trust my body. I didn't trust my body at all. And I was going to cry by thinking about it. I had a really hard time with my pregnancy with Atlas. Sorry. Going through the body changes, my body being fit and training every day with my flex was a way I could control my life. If everything was shit, I knew I felt really good because I was strong. And the minute I felt pregnant, everything just changed and I had no control over that. So I was like, what the fuck is going on? So for me, that was really, really intense. So when it was time to birth, I didn't know who my body was. I didn't recognize this new person. So I didn't trust it. But now it's completely different. And now I see that. I didn't see that up until a couple months ago. And this is where the work is. You have to really understand, because you have to go back. This is why hindsight is such a beautiful thing, and reflection, and speaking to people that truly understand what you're going through and truly hold space for it. It gives you different perspective. And seeing that now, I trust my body wholeheartedly. My body can do fucking amazing things. I had my baby cut out of me and I still was able to look after my baby. and do things and go for walks and do all these things very quickly afterwards. I was home within 24 hours after I had that big operation because I did not want to be in that hospital. And this is the thing, like, I know I can do hard things. I did hard things. I did it. But it's almost like I really needed that. I really needed to see the distrust in myself and my body and to see which way it can actually go to realize I don't fucking want that. I don't want that at all. I need to trust. I need to trust in my support network that I've created, in myself, in my body. You know, I fed my baby for 15 months from my body. You know, I did so much with my body. Why don't I trust her? You know, she's doesn't look the way I necessarily thought I wanted her to look, but what does that even mean? You know, what does that even mean? I'm doing all the things that make me feel good. And this is, again, my why for moving and exercising is different now. It's not to look a certain way like it used to be. It's to be strong and have the energy to fend for my family and to be there for my family, to support my family and to fill my cup up so I have that internal spiritual energy to put out forward. Just gone a biggest tangent.
No tangents. That's amazing.
So, yeah, that's my big life lesson lately. And this is what I have got through stillness and silence and connecting.
Yeah.
And being honest.
Yeah.
Being really honest.
And I think this is the thing. I thought when I got, and like sitting with you, like I thought when I leveled up with some things, and even like in the birth space and stuff, that other things wouldn't be scary anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, but you saying like, and then when I started getting scared again, or I started feeling in pain again, or whatever, I'm like, what's going on here? I've already been brave. I've been brave. I'm not going to be fearful again because I'm being brave, and I've started baking bread or whatever it is. But it hurts when you go back and you have to look and you have to be honest and be vulnerable. It can be really painful, not forever, because otherwise no one would ever go back. And some people never go back because they're so scared that the pain and the reflection and what that means about them is going to be too big and that they'll die because it will be too big to hold and actually look at and shed light on. But as you were saying there so beautifully, like when you go back and you look and you are just inquisitive and inquire and be like, why don't I like not having a sense of control? What's that about? Why didn't I like my body then? What's that about? And you hold your own self in a space of such love. Good can only come from it, even though it is love and it is painful. Like, I used to have this very limiting belief that you could only be one way. Like, if it was love, it wasn't bad. If it was love, it wasn't sore. If it was this, it, you know, this black and white. But it's not. It's all of it together, isn't it? And that's what you've like said so beautifully there. Like going back, looking, experiencing, feeling, growing will only get you closer to the birth that you're desiring with this baby. That's incredibly brave.
It's so multidimensional. You can have ugly and beautiful all wrapped in one little beautiful parcel.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, this is beautiful, therefore I'm not allowed to talk about the bad. And this is what people are really afraid of.
Yeah.
It's like, I love my life, but this still hurts. You're allowed to do that.
Oh, mate.
You're allowed to have different emotions about certain things all in one. It's okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
But can we talk about it without aggression? Can we talk about it without blame, without hate? Can we talk about it on a calm level where, you know, and it's that I still struggle with this. When I'm still heated, it's still, it's still going to, and you have to make sometimes a big full circle. And, you know, the only thing that can make that crystal clear communication is that space.
Yeah.
Is that space. And sometimes it's like, I can have this conversation, just give me a little bit of time. Or I can go deep into that, just give me a little bit of time. Even to myself, I have to say these things too. So it's, you know, it took a whole, 2 years? 2 years to make that full circle and to be pregnant again and to understand who I am now versus who I was then and what my beliefs were about myself and the way I walked through this world. And, you know, I think as the older we get and we have these little kids watching us, our own children, we want to start recognizing this as quickly as possible so we can start saying like, I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to have this characteristic that I put on myself. And I don't want you to do the same for you. And then to realize when you're 36 years old, I don't want that for you.
Yeah.
You know, the quicker I can learn these lessons, the quicker I can teach you the easier route. And I'm not going to have all the answers. We're not impossible, but we do better when we know better.
Exactly.
And we do better when we can see and we can pull away from our shit.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when we're stuck in it, and we're not speaking about it, not speaking about it is a big one, but we're not being honest. Like, it goes back to being honest about it. Like you were saying before, we're just masking our stuff and our grief and our pain with other situations that have no relevance. It's just this story that we're telling ourselves at the moment. And for me, it was, I didn't even know. It was just I failed and I didn't know why. I didn't know why.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on me and I hated myself for it, you know, and I just, those words are really hard for me to say because I can't believe I did that for such a long time, but I did. I felt a lot of shame around it. And this is me being 100% honest about it. I really did. And, you know, going back to I had to do a lot of investigation. Like I don't know if I even told you this. I think, no, I did. I was like, do I want a home birth? Do I want this?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to go to the GP. I'm going to go get my scan. I'm going to go get the scan. I'm going to go get the bloods. I'm going to go do everything, have the chat. I was 15 weeks pregnant at this stage. And then I went there and got the whole pile of referrals of everything, of the scans and everything. And I went home and I sat them on my desk and I went to bed and I woke up in the morning and I was like, nah, I threw them straight in the bin.
Wow.
And I felt so wrong. I was like, this is not what I want to do. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't do that, you know. And you need to put yourself out there. Sometimes when you don't know what decision you're going to make, sometimes making all the decisions in a little, like taking one step forward in all those areas and then see what feels right, you know, because you can, hard no's are very instantaneous. You know when it's a fucking hard no.
You know when it's a hard no.
You know. But when it's like, ooh, that feels good, let's go further. And I did that and I'm doing that. And now I'm seeing the rewards now because I'm just, you know, I feel really comfortable with the person I've chosen for the support now. And I feel really right with it. I feel like I've seen progress in just my mind and the way I think about things. And I feel really clear about it. Like, just going back, just answering this question, like when I started speaking to you about it versus now, how different do I sound?
So different. And it's that, like, I think the beautiful word you said there was investigation. I feel like when you started pretty early in the pregnancy, I think, maybe after the first trimester, when you started to get your energy levels back, it was like a quest of like you said, kind of like what went wrong, but what is in this space? What is going on here? Why do I want this? You are asking yourself the really, really hard questions. What happens if? Where's the information? And now it's like this ownership of it as opposed to something that happened to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I look back now because there was a kink in the road and the kink was the trust. So the minute there's no trust, fuck, that's a big one.
Yeah.
It really can shake everything. You really have to understand what stopped you and why, what will push you further, what will keep you on that road. And it's just really stripping back all the layers. Like, I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent, but I think this is really, really relevant.
Right.
My brother has started playing this game and we started playing it a couple of weeks ago where I asked you to think about anything. It could be anything in the world. Just think about it, right?
Yeah.
And it could be a movie. It could be a plant name. It could be it could be soil. It could be whatever, a planet. And I've got to start with the big questions. Is it on this world? Is it on this universe? Is it real? Is it this? Is it that? But then if you're going like too skewed off and you're in this realm of trying to decide what it was, like say, for example, this is what actually happened with my brother. He asked me to think about it and I was thinking of a particular person and he started thinking about And he was like thinking about maybe it's a out of this world. He was going like it's an object, it's soil, or it's universal. But he was so far in there, and he's like, do I know it? Can I touch it? Can I do this? Can it go in a forest? Will I see it in a forest? But I was like, no, come back to the main, come back.
Yeah.
Like you can't think of a person when you're in the metaphysical.
You're in the forest.
So, you're in the forest, yeah. So we had to come back to the start, and he's like, oh, fuck. Like, that was my lesson. It was a human. I should have asked, is it real or whatever, you know? So it's sometimes you ask the wrong questions and you can be so far off track where you just got to come back to the start and start again.
Yeah.
And that was a really good life lesson. It's just like sometimes when we're just spiraling out of control, you just got to come back to the basics, come back to the beginning, and start again. Start journaling your story, what actually happened. Because, yeah, again, perspective and all these things that we know now changes. It brings us back onto track.
Yeah. That's one of the, so funny you say that. That's one of the biggest things when I did that intuitive mentorship, which was very left of field for me after I shared the pod. No, I hadn't shared the podcast yet. So I did it and then I shared the podcast. But I was like, the head is spinning, like that feeling like I was out in the forest and in the metaphysical bloody whatever, and I had no space. And every time I went to Mel, the lady I did it with, and spoke about things, she was like, simplify.
Yeah.
Simplify. Like, what experience, what feeling are you avoiding? What experience are you trying to create? How can you create that experience? Like, it was simplify, slow. It's not. And look, that some things are hard, as in like you've got to do work to get where you want to go and things like that. But that really hard, stuck, feeling that you can feel often is, or for me now, I'm very disconnected from who I am and where I need to be. And there's a reason I'm staying over there in the metaphysical or whatever it is, because I'm avoiding something where I am. It's pain, it's shame, it's self-worth, whatever it is. Let's come back to where I am. Let's give it some love. Let's have a look at it. Let's do some healing, however that looks for you. Hold that space, let it go, and then move forward. But yeah, that we're always, and this is, I guess, going on that energy level, but we're always getting signs. We're energy, the world is energy, people are energy, everything is energy. We're constantly reverbing, like, what's that word? Like vibrating off one another. If you go to the doctor, getting all those stacks and be like, no. And going back to our gym analogy, the more you trust yourself, the easier it gets, the stronger the feeling gets. Like, as I said, I've been to, I think, maybe 7 different spaces. Within a second, I knew they were all wrong. It's incredibly scary because I think, what if I never get the right one? So it's having that trust that the right one will present itself. But it's just the knowing of, no, it's not right. And this is the thing when you're a people pleaser, or like you go and look for your answers outside of yourself. Like, don't get me wrong, the soundboarding, the advice, taking that on, if it's intentional, it's so helpful. If you're seeking it and asking it, you will get what you receive. We don't exist in isolation. But when you were so disconnected or completely numbing out for who you actually are, it's really hard to hear what you need. The more you connect, the easier it is. And this, like, looking at, and not that I'm looking and judging people at all, but looking at myself and my past versions of myself, like going back to 21, 25-year-old Courtney, 27-year-old Courtney, her life was constructed to keep herself numb, but keep herself safe. Like, I wanted to please a lot of people around me. I was incredibly unhappy. To deal with that unhappiness, I would drink a lot. Like, I'd hold it together, drink, explode, hold it together, drink, explode. Now, because I've looked at those parts of myself I was trying to avoid, maybe similar to the birth story of like, what happened here? This is really painful to look at, but I need to look at it and hold it. I don't need to run from that. I still have painful experiences. I still have the layers that I need to peel back and work on to get where I need to go. But when you're integrated with yourself, the rest, it kind of becomes it actually becomes easier, as opposed to pretending you're something you're not, and then you're smashing your body, or you're, coping with it in some way. Like, we think if we don't look at it, that it's not there. It's there. It's just coming out in a different way.
It makes sense why people don't want to dive into their old stuff, because it fucking hurts.
It fucking hurts.
It hurts. So it makes sense why people avoid confrontational conversations, or avoid really diving deep into past experiences, or even journaling about what happened recently that really pissed you off, or whatever it is. It hurts.
Yeah.
You have to relive that moment. And when you relive a moment, you feel the moment all over again. When you speak about that moment, you feel the feels.
But you got to feel it to heal it. That's what, like, you got to
Exactly.
feel it to heal it.
You just got to go through it.
Yeah.
You got to go over it.
You got to go through it. I feel like this is it. I feel like we didn't know where this was going. We've got some key themes, babe. But you do.
Got a lot of what's it called? Instagram
like,
little short clips.
That's right. But you do.
Love
you
it.
have to fucking feel it to heal it. And this is the thing, as a psychologist, I love psychology. I think it has it's an incredible modality. It has saved me a lot. I've seen a lot of amazing psychologists in my time that have gotten me through times in my life that I needed to get through. But the way I did psychology was I had my feelings over there in the corner and I would talk about them. And the problem with that is when you don't feel it and heal it and get it out of your body, you keep getting reacted. So I would keep getting reacted if someone, using your example, if I feel like someone didn't hear me, or if I feel like someone didn't like me. That was a massive one. Like, everyone in the whole world has to love me. Now I don't really care if you like me or not, because I like me and that's all good. But
I like me.
Yeah, I like me. But I had to integrate that, feel it, love myself, and let it go. And until you have that, I just don't feel like things didn't truly shift. I could see myself as a people pleaser, but I'd still want to please. I would see myself as all these things, but still want to do it because I wasn't experiencing any of the feeling and emotion associated with it. When now I would put myself in the situation, do the modalities that make me feel it and experience it, like you, like sitting in that stillness and that silence and experiencing that pain, not to hurt myself, but to feel it and acknowledge it, give it love, give it light, and let it go. So now if someone walked up to me and said, Courtney, you wear disgusting Kmart jumpers and I hate you and I will never watch any of your videos, I would be like, that's okay. It's your life. You don't have to watch my videos or like my Kmart jumpers. I like them. I'm all good. And having that power, oh my God, it's like second to none.
Isn't it? Really watch. It's so powerful. Oh my God. It's because this is where our mind goes when we want to do something. Like, I want to put a story on, but is someone going to hate me? But then again, so what will I won't die if they hate me, and their support doesn't stop me from doing anything because I've got even better support. So why do I need their support? And when you strip that back, you're just like, okay, if that's the only thing stopping me from doing and I don't really care about it, why did I do it? But when we think about it instantly, we're like, oh, yeah, freeze, let's not do it. Yeah, let's not do it. But then it's like when we really dissect it and take it back, it's like, not that bad. Not worst case scenario, not that bad. I'm not going to die. I'm all right. I'm alive. We're good. 100%. Let's keep going.
Since experiencing death, and this is just quickly, I'm not going to deep dive into death again, but death, it gives you amazing lessons. When I watched my dad, a bit different with Chantal because it was instantaneous, but for me, my experience of it, but for Dad, I watched him die. So he was battling with MDS and then leukemia for probably about 3 years, and then it really ramped up for about 6 months. And I saw him every week, every few days, and then every day in the last 2 weeks of his life. And having that experience of death is incredible. There was a point where, okay, Dad, that was the last time Dad ever left the house because he died at home, chose to die at home. Okay, this is the last time Dad will ever be in the living room because he died in his bed. Okay, this is the last time Dad's ever going to leave the bed. This is the last time. And I had Arlo with me at the time, so I was settling him downstairs and I'd look at all his things and he had a car in the garage and all these tools, things that make someone who they are in their lifetime. And I was like, fuck. He's never coming out of his bedroom because his book is done. We're on the final few pages and it's done. And again, painful but incredibly grateful, because zooming out a few months later, I was like, I don't know how, and there is a clichéness that comes to this, but when you actually sit in this space that you are going to die, as morbid as that sounds, but we are, because we all have a limited number of pages in our book. And for me, things have shifted. If this was my last day, would I be happy? If this was my last week, would I be happy? Would I stay in that shit job? Would I stay in that mediocre relationship? Would I do something different? Would I join choir? Would I bake bread? Because you are going to die. And I've watched someone die where no amount of money, no amount of begging, no amount of anything was going to stop that process that we're all on, that ride, that train that we're all on. And going back to the opinions of others, and this again sounds morbid, and it's not to take away the painful experience of death, even though I feel like I can laugh about death because I've had death experiences, but they're going to die too. So what are you going to do? You're sitting in your life where the ultimate outcome is you're going to die. You have infinite amount of opportunity and possibility depending on who you are and your situation. So you can really do anything with your life, and you're worried about the opinion of someone else that's also going to die, and their opinion's going to die with them. Like, it's when you sit in that space, you will just do things because you're like, well, what's the alternative? Like, I only have this one life. And again, there's this clichéness, like, we only live once, and like, slay the day, babe, and all the things. But when I know, I hear that a lot lately, like, I'm slay the day.
Yeah. Slay the day.
Slay the day. But really, slay the day. Like, this is your life. Your life, you get one shot. And I think about this a lot. And I think it's, and again, going back to the gratefulness of my experiences, it's because I've seen it. You get one shot, and then it's up, and you don't come back, and you take nothing with you except your experiences and what you've given to the world and your expression of who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't, I will finish up on this little rant, but you didn't come here to be anything else than who you are. You didn't come here to be like, I came here to be me. I listened to this incredible podcast, and it was about this lady that said, I must share it with you and show you, but
Courtney Baxter?
No. And she's like, everyone wants to be the next best version of. You want to be the next best version of Katy Perry, Mariah Carey, whatever it is. No, you can never be that. If you are the best version of yourself, who you came on this earth to be, that is it. That is it. That's where you will experience your life to the fullest, and allow other people to experience their lives to the fullest, because they're not trying to be you.
Exactly.
They're not trying to be anyone else. You're like, I can be me and you can be you. And that's it.
And when you stop giving lessons to other people, or when you stop being a full expression and stop connecting with people and stop giving them lessons, because this is what we do when we say things, we ignite there. Like, I heard a beautiful analogy as well. It's like, if when you're feeling super vulnerable and super enlightened and super just, when you were saying that flow and that vulnerable state, you were just doing things, you just picture like you're a candle and your flame is lit. And what you want to do when you're in that stage, you want to bend over and you wanting to light everybody else around you. And this is your gift, because you're lighting everybody up. But when you're not lighting everybody up because you're afraid of what they think of you, you're stopping them from being lit. So this is the thing, like, why are we doing this? Fear? Is it an illusion completely? And I just, sometimes when this is why these conversations are so important, because we forget and we'll go into shit spaces, but then we'll get better at it again. And then we go into shit spaces, and it keeps happening. But having these conversations and reminding people that it's okay to be down, but get back up. Yeah. Get back up. Yeah, 100%. Just listen and get back up.
No, flex the muscle. It is, and this
flex that muscle.
And this is so perfect. This entire conversation, because this is what I've been contending with. I was in flow. I was on my vulnerability high. Everything was so beautiful. I was so connected, and now I'm stuck. But you got to be stuck, because otherwise you won't know flow. So you've got to go through. You got to go through it, and like you say, it's not that you sort it out. It's always sorted out. You go down, you come up. You go down, you come up. But I think if you can,
never linear.
Up and down. Never linear. Hey, if you always come back to self, like going back to the birth, if you come back to self and know, I can birth this beautiful baby into this world because I am its mother and it chose me to be its mother, like, all the other shit is just noise, because that is who you are. Irrelevant. Yeah, it's just, and we have that. 100%. You know your highest, you know your why, you know your highest self, that calling, but you have to clear through the noise, clear through the pain, peel back the layers to get to that. I'm just lucky because the universe just put me in a fucking cannon. Just shot me to the sun. to the sunny coast. Like, you did. I was like, fuck, we can't get any worse than this. Let's go up. And, but everyone has that choice. Everyone has that choice.
Oh, babe. It's so beautiful. Oh, you're the best.
You're the best. This is why I love
it. What a chat. This is
good.
It went.
This is good.
Love it. I love it, honey. Thank you so much for joining me. It's just been beautiful, especially to finish this final season and this final stage of our lives into a big bang. And the end of the year. I can't believe it's Christmas.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And thank you, babe. I just need to say, for being just for context, Steph and I were friends in high school, and then something happened. We just fell out. But not even fell out. We just disconnected, for lack of a better word. Like, weren't in communication for a period of time, and then got back together. And honestly, the depth of my love for you is so real. You will never know the strength I think you've given me going back to COVID times, where it was so dark, no one knew what was going on in the world, and you kind of tried to throw out those little lights in the darkness and see who threw a little light back. And you totally threw yours back, and you were even though we hadn't spoken and, we didn't know who each other was in that point in time because we hadn't, had that connection, you were just so unconditional, and you were so unapologetically you, and you have continually shown me how to just be me by just being you. And I think creating this platform for people to show up as themselves, like, you will just never know the value. I hope you know the value, but I don't know if you'll ever truly understand the value that you've created, particularly in my life.
Oh, right back at you, honey. Thank you so much for just being there. It's been a beautiful journey. It really has. And I'm just grateful for you.
And I know that your next chapter with Mama of 2 is going to be incredible.
No, right back at you with your work and your space, and I know it'll all come to you beautifully because you're doing the work, and the final destination is obvious. It's just getting there, and you'll get there.
Thanks, honey.
No, thank you. I love you.
I love you.
Well, thank you so much for wherever you're listening from. Have a beautiful day. Peace.
And that's a wrap for season 1, first season of the Honesty Policy Hour. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me, for all the episodes that you've joining me on, and your support. I hope you received a few good takeaways from the episode and every other episode that you've listened to. And I just want to say thank you again. Have a beautiful Christmas, New Year. And I hope your 2023 was enlightening and you embarked on so many new beautiful adventures, and that you're just growing every single day. I love you. Thank you. And I'll see you next year for season 2.